thousands at March for Europe Brexit protest. Thousands of people have marched through London to protest against the referendum decision to leave the EU. Demonstrators at the March for Europe rally, organised on social media, held placards saying Remain and We Love EU. In the referendum on the 23rd of June, the UK voted to leave the EU with a 51.9% in favour of leaving and 48.1% supporting Remain. Critics said that those protesting who lost the vote were having a tantrum. Just what do these people think they are actually protesting anyway? I'm sure they all believe in democracy and the rule of law. So are they really protesting to overturn a democratic decision just because it didn't go their way and they lost? Boo-hoo! Are they really protesting the result of a democratic vote in order to have another democratic vote in the hope that next time it goes their way? The propaganda from the left-wing media is such that apparently now 1/3 of people who voted to leave think that we will in fact never now leave the EU. But are these people protesting to keep us in Europe or to keep us in the EU? Because the two things are completely different. I want to stay part of Europe. In fact, unless we can move the whole of Great Britain and anchor the country off the coast of Africa, then it looks like we're going to stay part of Europe forever, I should imagine, as Europe is a continent, and we are part of that continent. So we will always be part of Europe. But I don't want to stay in the organisation called the European Union. I heard a tweet read out on LBC yesterday saying that the protesters are protesting to keep us in the EU because the EU means peace and freedom. The Remainers that are complaining about the result of a democratic referendum, I can almost guarantee you that they have absolutely no idea about the huge role the EU played when they overthrew a democratically elected government in Ukraine. And I bet they also don't know that the EU then went on to install a neo-Nazi government who literally hailed Hitler before their cabinet meetings. Is this what they meant by peace? And as for the EU being about freedom, what a joke! Being run by unelected bureaucrats that dictate to nations at least 3/4 of their laws, that is not freedom. That is slavery under a dictatorship. And in fact, since the Brexit victory, the EU are looking to create the United States of Europe quicker than anyone ever thought by morphing the remaining EU countries into one, which means nation states will be forced, forced, i.e. against their will, i.e. told what to do, i.e. dictated to. They will be forced to give up their own army, to give up their own tax system, to give up their own criminal justice system, and to give up their own central banks. They will then be openly ruled by unelected dictators that they can never remove from power or ever hold to account. Does that sound like freedom to you? Is that what the youth of today believe freedom to be? If so, then by God, we are all doomed, because in my eyes, that's about as far from freedom as you can possibly get. I would suggest that the Remainers who are protesting are the people who haven't done an ounce of research on the EU ever. I'm also really fed up of being told by the London lefty media bubble that I'm as thick as shit because I voted to leave, and that I voted leave because I can't understand the arguments. But had I voted to remain, then I'm obviously intelligent, well-read, a sensible, progressive, inclusive person who does understand the arguments. I would suggest that to vote for a new Soviet Union or another North Korea is about as uneducated as you can possibly get. How can you want to be ruled by dictators? Forget immigration, forget the economic argument, forget 350 million a week. Who would vote to be ruled by an unelected dictatorship that you can never hold to power, that they themselves are hell-bent on power at any cost? Who would vote for that? And what makes it worse is when you've dodged a bullet like our country have and we vote to come out of the EU SSR, then you protest to get back into the EU SSR. You leave a dictatorship and then you protest and cry and boo-hoo all night long just to get back into that dictatorship. It's like those protesters are crying and shouting, boo-hoo, I don't want to be free. Take me back into your dictatorial arms. I can't think for myself. I need unelected bureaucrats to tell me how to rule my life. It is simply unbelievable.